Hi guys, just want to do a video today about why always cutting calories isn't necessarily the best option for you, and kind of explain as why as well, why especially more in female clients that have done kind of diets and stuff like 12-week style programs where like strict diets, why kind of initially you got some good results, why the results dried up, and why now potentially you could be stuck. And obviously shed some light as to how to get out of that situation as well. Okay, so obviously one of the tools, and I pay attention to when I say one of the tools for fat loss is to cut calories. Okay, create a calorie deficit by making you eat less. Okay, so that's one of the tools. I think it tends to get overused, especially when you see these kind of advertised on television, internet. 12-week style diet programs where initially you're going to get good results and then kind of long term it becomes a little bit more dubious because obviously it's very easy to with minimal contact hand out diet plans that just cut calories and that's all they do, whereas long term you need to be able to observe results or record results and be objective and adapt as you go. So that's very hard to do with an online-based program or distance, which is kind of I guess why a lot of these programs they simplify and they create a system, obviously so they can build a successful business, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the best result for you long term. Okay, so with the handy little whiteboard I have prepared earlier on, hopefully I can get this into shot correctly. Let me just turn it that way. Okay, so. If you look there on the vertical axis there, I've got calories there. Along the bottom, we've got time. Okay, so let's say we go right at the very start. So the blue line represents how many calories you're eating. Okay, so let's just say, for argument's sake, you start off. You haven't dieted before, and you start off at 2,500 calories at 25% body fat. Okay. So your whole plan to lose your fat is to cut calories down to say 2,000. Great, so you do that and you drop down, and then after a few weeks you're at 20% body fat and your results tend to stop a little bit. Okay, so maybe it's time to cut some more calories. So then let's say you drop down to 1,500. I'm not saying everyone will necessarily drop in such big numbers, but get the idea. So you drop down in calories more, drop a little bit more down to 18% body fat. And again, the same thing happens again, you get stuck. And it's like, well, we'll drop a bit more calories. So you do that again, and you come down to kind of 17% body fat. And then after kind of 12, 14, 16, maybe 18 weeks or so, you get completely stuck. You're not getting anywhere, and you're tearing your hair out, and you don't know what to do. Okay, so as you get to that point, if you kind of follow the same mindset, you would think to yourself, well, to get more results, you need to cut more calories out. By at that point, for just over 1,000 calories, you're probably going to be living off of dust and water, which I wouldn't recommend. So obviously, why is that? Why is it when we cut calories that progress slows? And I've seen it definitely in female clients that have maybe been dieting for years, that eventually they start to put fat back on again, even if the calories are low, and then obviously mentally they break down and then just have a bit of a splurge and put on loads of weight, maybe even overshoot where they weren't necessarily at the start. So maybe they were 25 at the start, they go for a couple of years of dieting and then by the end of it they're nearer to 30 or even over 30, and they've got no energy, and generally life, quality of life is horrendous. So what we need to think of is obviously as you're cutting calories, your body's going to adapt your metabolism to suit the amount of energy coming in. Also, your body really, its primary concern is it wants you to survive. So if there's less and less food around, obviously it's going to adapt by slowing things down, making things more efficient, shutting down any unnecessary processes for survival, slowing them down so you can survive. So if I go back to this now, and again, just do my little, get it back into the shot, that's the one, that way. That green line there is going to represent your metabolism. Okay, so obviously at the start, your body's used to having 2,500 calories a day, so that's how fast your metabolism, the rate it works at. Obviously, as you cut calories over time, it's going to decrease slowly over time, obviously. Obviously, the slower your metabolism is, the less you're going to see results from cutting calories in your food, because obviously you're going to lose your fat as your metabolism adapts to that new calorie deficit, and as it finally reaches the same level, your fat loss, or especially your weight loss, is going to stop. So really long term, what's the best way to do it? The best way to do it really is to think more about creating a deficit with your training, getting your training performance up, so you're training actually really hard, and each week you get a little bit stronger or a little bit faster, or you can work out more intensely or need less rest period. So your body's used to working at a higher and higher rate. Yes, you're stimulating that metabolism to get faster and faster and faster and faster, which is what we want. And then obviously very slowly over time, with a lot of female clients actually start to increase their calories, which sounds like a completely foreign concept to a lot of them, because it's like, oh well, if I want to lose fat and weight, I must cut calories. I must starve myself after death, because that's how people get results. And the trouble is, really, realistically, that is what's fucking you up long term, because you get to the point where you're eating such little food, your metabolism is so slow, you've got nowhere to go. Like cutting calories, that tool has, you can't use it anymore. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's going to make you ill, and eventually you find you'll start putting on fat back on again because your body's stressed, it's constantly starved. So your quality of sleep will decrease as well. And obviously your ability to train hard, because you're going to be lethargic all the time because your body's just in this constant starvation mode. So this is why a lot of women, that's why specifically why a lot of these programs tend to be about 12 weeks, is because after that period, really, if you're just cutting people's calories, that's when the results tend to dry up. So they want to kind of leave you at just at the point where you've got some good results, and they can show before and after picture and go, ooh, you've got great results, and then that's it. I'm interested in what happens after that 12 weeks, what's going to happen. What happens for a lot of people, unfortunately, is obviously they come for 12 weeks. If they haven't got a plan to start increasing calories slowly and building up metabolism, they'll go back to normal eating, and what you'll find is, because your metabolism's that much lower than it was before you started your diet, you go back to eating 2,500 calories again, and the fat comes back on 2 or 3 times quicker than it came off. And in fact, say you were 25% body fat at the start, you might overshoot that, go up to 26, 27, 28, maybe even 30% body fat, and then you're kind of in a worse position you were very, very first started. So I think the key really is to look at long term. I'm not saying that cutting calories doesn't work, of course it does, but cutting calories from food is just a tool, and we have to use it appropriately, and we can't abuse it. I think far better long term is to speed your metabolism up by getting you to train harder, and very slowly increasing calories, so you start to speed things up, so you've got more robust metabolism. So that means, then if you go out for meals and social events, stuff like that, where you're eating stuff that's insane on the diet, it doesn't really make much of a difference. Sometimes actually, if your metabolism is training nice and quickly, actually it helps, because it gives it a nice little kickstart to get even faster again. Whereas if you're stuck in the mindset of starving yourself, and then you have like 1 weekend off, before you know, you've put on, probably put on half a kilo in a couple of days straight away, because your body's just like, oh, let's just put it on, it's panicked. So that's the key, is not to overuse cutting calories. It's a tool, yes it does work, but it must be used at the right time in the right place. If you've already been cutting calories, and I know female clients have been doing it for years and years and years, like, it isn't going to work for you. That's why you get stuck and you don't get the results anymore. You've got to start slowly increasing food, and increasing your, very slowly increasing how intensely you can work out. Not necessarily working out more, but making sure, say there's 3 to 4 hours you do work out hard, you start to get a bit more, your performance goes up. But again, it's very slowly, because once you're stuck in this hole, you have to be very careful about how you dig yourself out of it, and it has to be a very step-by-step, slow process, and you have to have some objective way to measure progress, because I've had female clients that were stuck in this situation who were just using weight maybe, and the weight can be all over the place. I've had girls, it makes no sense really, if you think about it just purely in terms of cutting calories, they may be down at like 1,500 calories a day, say, eating, and they've shot back up to 22% body fat. I suddenly increased the calories up to 1,700 or maybe 2,000 over time. The body fat comes down, but also the weight will suddenly come down, which could be attributed to inflammation, stress in the body. Suddenly your body doesn't have to starve, so it's not stress, and it'll come down that way. But the objective thing is, you've got to be better measure it objectively and go in very slow, small increments. So I'm talking about 50 calories a week, 100 calories a week. If it's a male, probably you weigh a bit more, maybe 200, 250 even in some cases. But yeah, just constantly cutting calories and starving yourself, you're just going to get stuck in a rut and go nowhere. So at best, you'll probably get nowhere. And eventually, probably for a lot of people, especially more stressed, you actually start to go backwards even though you're not eating very much. And then when you mentally you break down and have a big splurge, you just like boom, the weight comes on real quick. You're in a bad state because you're carrying a high amount of body fat, and your metabolism's in the toilet, so it's going to be hard to dig yourself out of it. So obviously, don't overuse cutting calories. You're better off creating a deficit with your training really long term. So burn it off, don't starve it off. And then if you are stuck in this hole currently, you have to accept the fact that you have to very slowly start increasing your food, and then just nursing that metabolism back into health. And what you'll find over time is that you're going to hit it in waves. So you're going to build your metabolism up as high as you can, get it almost as high as you can while still maintaining the same body fat. Then we can cut calories a little bit, body fat will come down to a certain point, it will stall again, then we can build back up again, a little bit higher. And then come down and build back up, and then come down like that. And that's what we want. But it takes time, and obviously that model doesn't work very well for people who want to set up a distance diet-based approach for 12 weeks that's advertised on TV, so they can make millions. Because any idiot can work out roughly a BMR, cut off 500 calories each day, and there's your diet plan. There you go, off you go, easy. Next. Whereas realistically, the best long-term approach, and especially for better results, is it needs to be tailored as you go along. The way to do that is to work with a coach who can assess your body fat as you go, and pay attention to training performance, energy levels, and quality of life. But obviously, that business model doesn't lend itself to being advertised on TV. Okay, so any questions or comments on that? Hopefully I've explained that with some sense. One guy I would definitely recommend checking out is a guy called Lane Norton, Dr. Lane Norton. He's very good at explaining this. Obviously be objective about it. I'm not saying counting calories doesn't work. I'm just saying it's got its time, its place. And like any kind of strict kind of diet practice, usually it's a very short-term tool. And I think the problem is it tends to get overused and abused too much, because people just tend to assume that's the only way to get things done. It definitely isn't. So yeah, definitely check out Dr. Lane Norton's videos. He's got some good videos. He's explaining this a lot better than I do, in more detail. But hopefully I've kind of covered the basics of it. So obviously any questions or comments, let me know. If you want me to go in more detail, obviously also let me know. But I think it's an important thing to grasp. Especially if you are in this situation at the moment where you're eating, next to no food, you're not getting results, and your body fat's either the same or going upwards. You need to know the way to dig yourself out of that hole is to very slowly increase calories and very slowly increase your output in your workouts. Okay.